Welcome back to the Everygirl podcast. Today, we are talking about success. I have certainly always been an ambitious enough person who honestly loves to work. I have always had the biggest dreams for myself since I was little, and I think obviously ambition is wonderful. But I also want to start off with this little reminder of success for what? We live in a world that constantly tells us to be more, do more, chase more money, more milestones, more titles, more followers. But if you've ever hit a goal and still felt really empty or focused on the next thing instead of celebrating the goal that you just accomplished, you're not alone. When we talk about success, I think it's really important to make sure that we're out of the hustle culture mindset that is like success for the sake of success. Like you just get so addicted to chasing the next thing because at the root of it, you never really feel fully fulfilled till you think the next raise, the next promotion, the next business. That's the thing that will finally make you feel fulfilled or worthy. But of course, it doesn't. What I constantly have to check in on for myself, and what I really want to encourage you to check in on before we get into this conversation, is making sure that you're never striving for the sake of success, but instead you're cultivating what I call aligned ambition. It's kind of like success with intention. Like the purpose of your career, having goals, working to be successful is not just to make as much money as you possibly can or to see how high you can climb, how hard you can work. It's to make your life as happy as possible. Your happiness is related to your career success in two ways. Okay. First of all, obviously, money is a tool to give you freedom of choice, especially for women when it's historically been used as a tool to cage us. Money gives us independence and freedom. And it's also so a lack of money isn't the thing that's holding you back from being able to live your best possible life. Whatever that means for you, if that's being able to take off a long weekend to spend with your family here and there, if that's outsourcing the time that you'd otherwise spend on chores that you hate to spend more time on the things that you love, if that's taking your family on amazing vacations, if that's living in a home that makes you happy, if that's having more resources to get healthier so that you live a long, energized, healthy life, money is a tool to live your happiest, fullest, best life possible. Secondly, most of us will spend a good portion of all of the hours of our lives working. And I mean that as clocking into your job, but also I mean that as, the chores that we have to get done, being a full-time parent, all forms of labor. So, all of this time we're spending is an opportunity to feel fulfillment and passion that will help make us happier. I know it's cheesy and kind of outdated to be like, follow your passions, pursue what you love. But psychologically speaking, stimulation, feeling needed, learning, solving problems, seeing an outcome after you invested a ton of time into it, these are all super important factors of happiness. And that's where aligned ambition comes in. I think a lot of this, like the quiet quitting, people opting out of ambitious or trying really hard at work is a logical response to that hustle culture that I certainly grew up in. I love people sticking it to the man and rethinking their lives instead of being told how they should live. So I love that. I'm all for it. But on the other hand, I think when you totally check out and don't care at all and just kind of clock in, clock out, sometimes it dulls your inner fire. It just makes life all around less fulfilling. You dread going to work, you hate it. I think it's actually really healthy to dream big or to be wildly passionate. But the key is that it's ambition with purpose and also with pleasure, too. Hustle culture and the girl boss era was all about what you're doing. But what I call aligned ambition is about how you're doing it and why. Hustle culture has one definition of success: to be working super long hours toward the next milestone and eventually making a lot of money. But ambition is so individual. Like, that's not the right life for all of us. Aligned ambition is really about pursuing with your whole heart what feels most aligned to you, whether it's creating content or working at a nonprofit or being a full time parent, or it can also just be getting a decent enough paycheck to sustain a life outside of work that you love, putting effort and time into a job that maybe isn't super fulfilling or passionate, but you are so intentional about how you're spending your paycheck so that it creates this intentional, fulfilling life for you. Aligned ambition looks like choosing joy as a metric of success. Yes, it can include working really hard and putting in a lot of care and effort, but always from a place of self-love because you know what you deserve, not self-sacrifice because you don't think you're worthy enough already. You see the difference? And I really want to stress, I'm not trying to say that everyone should pursue their greatest passion for their full-time job or work at a nonprofit. I'm actually not talking about the job at all. I'm talking more about the mindset behind whatever your job is. You can find fulfillment and purpose and stimulation in literally any job or any career. There was a Yale study, I love the study, that looked at janitors in a hospital. And what they found were that some janitors viewed themselves as just cleanup crews that would clock in and clock out in order to, collect a paycheck and then get home. While other janitors saw themselves as almost like healers and an important part of the care for patients. For example, one custodian would rotate the artwork in patients' rooms to give them a simple change of scenery that would hopefully improve their mood. Another custodian would get to know which cleaning supplies would bother the patients going through chemo, so they would switch up the cleaning supplies based on whose patient's room they were cleaning. Another custodian would spend time comforting families. So, what the study found was that the custodians who saw themselves as an essential part of the healing process for patients rather than just janitors reported significantly higher levels of job satisfaction, emotional well being, and personal fulfillment than those who saw their work as just a job. This is just one example from a growing body of research that shows how we perceive and relate to our work contributes a lot to our happiness. I know most of you listening are probably so burnt out and exhausted. So, for the record, I'm not trying to say give more to your employer, work harder, more hours. In fact, this whole episode is really going to be about the opposite: how to work smarter in less time and be less burned out. But my point is just that I want you to be aware of the reason of why we're talking about success. It's not just success for the sake of getting successful. We're talking about success for the purpose of happiness and fulfillment. It's actually about getting out of the hustle and leading with intention and strategy so that you can be as free and happy in your life as you possibly can. We are not climbing a ladder we don't even want to be on. We are building a life that lights us up. So that's my prologue. Now that you have the whole intention, the purpose behind success, let's talk about the principles that will make you more successful. You've probably heard, all the usual advice about success: wake up at 5 a.m., be a team player, ask for a raise, demand what you want, whatever it is. And most of us have tried all of the things and still sometimes feel like we're nowhere where we want to be and have no idea how to get there. So, in this episode, I am breaking down 5 career changing, life upgrading, absolutely not basic principles that will guaranteed make you more successful. Not just look more successful on your LinkedIn profile, but to live bigger, be happier, feel less burnt out, be more productive. These are the game changing concepts that no one taught you in school, but the most successful people live by. Whether you are climbing the corporate ladder or launching your own thing, or you're just trying to not scream into a pillow by Friday, these principles will become your blueprint. Let's get into it. The first principle is called the 80/20 rule. The popular entrepreneur and motivational speaker and author Tim Ferriss popularized that is such a hard word. Popularized this phrase saying, you don't get really successful by grinding endlessly. You get successful by figuring out which 20% of your effort drives 80% of your result and then ruthlessly prioritizing that. I first heard about this concept from my dad. Shout out to my dad. He's a big proponent of this rule. But the concept of the 80/20 rule originated in the early 1900s by an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto. That sounds like a delicious pasta dish, and I can say that because I'm Italian, so it's not offensive, right? He noticed basically that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the people. And ever since then, researchers have found this ratio show up everywhere in business and time management. Like, for example, 20% of your clients likely bring in 80% of your revenue, or 20% of your habits likely drives 80% of your energy. 20% of your to-do list is probably what drives the majority of change in your life. So the 80/20 principle is really a mindset shift. It's realizing that more effort doesn't always mean success. Our brains are naturally wired to think that more equals better. We're so programmed to think the more clients we have or the more offerings we give, the more money I'll make, or the harder I work, the more successful I will be. But that's not actually how we function best. Neuroscience tells us that our mental bandwidth is actually extremely limited. You only have so many high quality decision making minutes in a day before your brain hits cognitive fatigue. And decision fatigue can lead to procrastination, impulse decision making, and burnout, all of which are preventing you from being successful. Most of us probably have to do lists full of tasks that don't really matter all that much, or we're spending a lot of time on clients or projects or meetings that don't actually bring enough return. And so we're wasting so much precious mental bandwidth. This is where the 80/20 rule becomes a tool for success hygiene. It helps your brain stop wasting energy on the 80% of the stuff that doesn't actually matter and frees you up to go all in on the 20% that does. So, how you can apply the 80/20 principle to your life. First of all, start by doing an 80/20 audit. Look at your to do list, your calendars, your habits. What do you do in a typical day? What 20% of these tasks are bringing me the most success, fulfillment, energy, or results? And then once you have that 20% figured out, look at the other 80% of the habits, rituals, tasks, things on your to do list, and ask yourself, what about these can I eliminate, automate, or delegate? So, for example, if there's a meeting that could have been an email, obviously cancel it. If scrolling through your inbox for an hour is draining your creative energy, batch check your inbox just 2 times a day, like 10 minutes max each. Or if a friend or a certain task leaves you feeling drained, set boundaries or reassess how you can offload it. And I swear this 80/20 rule works as a solution to any problem at work. Like if you're feeling creatively blocked, look at your workflow. Maybe it's not that you're actually in a creative rut, it's that you're spending 80% of your workday in meetings or answering Slack messages instead of actually giving yourself the space to create. Or if you want to grow your business instead of trying 10 different marketing tactics, look at what is actually converting and then double down on that. Do that more. You can even apply this to your health, honestly. Like maybe like 80% of your improvements in your health comes from just walking every day and sleeping 9 hours. So prioritize those two things, that 20% of your wellness routine, and maybe give up some of the other 80%, like hit classes that are just leaving you really drained, or all the expensive vegan packaged food that is not actually moving the needle forward and maybe just like stressing you out, costing you more money. Really pare down to the 20% that matters, letting the rest of the 80% go. Basically, identify what 20% of your day to day checklist brings you the majority of your results, and then either eliminate or automate the rest. And this isn't just about saving you time or mental load, even though that certainly will help with that too. The 80/20 rule can amplify success faster because you identify what's working and then double down on that for greater results. So, like, instead of wasting all this time on low impact efforts, you invest more time, more energy, more focus into your top 20%, which often leads to exponential results. So, for example, if you're a content creator and your audience is responding best to one type of content, one series, create more of that. Double down on that instead of trying to test all these things or keep up with the trends. Or if you're a corporate girly, let's say you're overwhelmed with meetings, a long to do list, and you feel like you're constantly putting out fires, you might realize that 80% of your results, client satisfaction, product performance, positive feedback from leadership, those results are really coming from just 20% of your efforts. Like maybe it's coming from strategizing campaign direction, mentoring junior team members, high level client presentations. But then 80% of your time is being spent in meetings, responding to low priority emails, fixing other people's small mistakes. So if you double down on that 20%, what you are exceptional at, and then you outsource or delegate or get rid of anything that isn't within your 20% zone of genius, you or your company will scale so much faster. So the 80/20 rule is the move when you're trying to scale, grow, or just go to the next level. Principle number two, your brain is designed to focus on one thing at a time. It is no secret or surprise that with social media and technology just growing more and more, our productivity and focus decreases. We have so many freaking distractions, so many potential sources of like quick, addicting dopamine boosts that it's impossible to stay focused on just one thing for a long amount of time. It's like, of course, we're not productive. And of course, we're having energy crashes or we can't focus. Our world is setting us up for failure. Just as an example, like how often are you scrolling through your phone while also watching TV? What you're doing when you do this is you train your brain to only feel comfortable with that extreme dopamine release of two different stimulants at once. This translates to our brains not being able to focus for a long period of time when we're brainstorming or working on a project. But we are not doomed, okay? We're never doomed. We have control over our own lives. You have to train your brain, like work it like a muscle to focus on one thing at a time. Calming your mind and using almost tunnel vision is a skill that we should all be working on in order to increase our productivity. So, the answer here is like multitask less. I might be the only person who is talking about success or productivity tips and is actually telling you to multitask less instead of more. And like, I get it, multitasking might make you feel productive, but it's actually just training your brain to be less focused. Psychology tells us that the brain actually cannot multitask. There's actually no such thing. What it does is task switch. So it flips back and forth between tasks, even if rapidly. And every time it switches, it has to reorient and refocus. That mental gear shifting is costing you a lot of time, energy, and effort. And also accuracy. The more you task switch, studies show that the less accurate and the less focused you can be on each task. There's actually a name for this in neuroscience, something called a switch cost, which means every time you switch tasks, your brain experiences essentially like a cognitive tax that will slow you down and make you more likely to make mistakes. A study published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology found that switching between tasks can reduce productivity by up to 40%. Who has the time to let go of 40% of their productivity? I know we all task switch all the time, and sometimes we have to. We're checking our inboxes while we're on Zoom calls, we're slacking with a coworker in the middle of working on a presentation. But if you reduce multitasking as much as you possibly can and you commit to single tasking, like literally looking at focusing on one task at a time as a skill that you're training your brain to do, your brain will be able to focus better, stay in the flow state longer. You'll make fewer mistakes. You'll be better at problem solving. You'll feel less mentally drained, less burnt out. And ultimately, you will get more done in less time, which, as you'll hear throughout this episode, that is basically the goal of every one of these principles. Get more done in less time so we have more time to spend outside of work in our lives. Because that's the point. Again, success for what? To live our lives. So, what this may look like, even if you can't technically change anything at work right away, when you're watching TV, put away your phone and truly focus on and enjoy the show you're watching. If you're waiting for an elevator or you're standing in line somewhere, resist the urge to pull out your phone and scroll. Allow yourself just to be focusing on the task of waiting for the elevator doors to open or the line to move. At work, whenever you are stopping tasks to check your phone or check your email, this is the problem. And it's really hard for me because obviously, like any other millennial slash Gen Z slash anyone that has had a phone for most of their lives at this point, it's really hard to not be checking your phone, checking your Instagram, checking TikTok, checking your messages, your email. There's so many things to be checking. And my God, I'm exhausted, aren't you? So I've been working on setting designated times to check my inbox rather than like having it be a go to that I do throughout the day. So that way I am intentionally working on tasks and then I'm intentionally checking my inbox rather than kind of clicking on it as a default. Yes, this has made me much slow and worse at responding to people. So I'm so sorry if you're one of the thousands of people that are waiting on an email from me, but it has made me so much more productive and better at my job. And then also, I think I've just become a lot more aware of when I'm trying to focus on more than one thing at a time, which sometimes is not a bad thing. Like I still, task switch or habit stack often. It doesn't always have to be bad. Like I love listening to music when I cook, or I love calling my mom while I go for a walk. Like habit stacking, grouping things together, doing things at the same time can often be helpful and productive for sure. But the problem happens when we're training our brain to not be able to focus on one thing at a time. Again, a lot of it is like resisting the urge to take out your phone all the time, make yourself complete one task before hopping to another, set your Slack message as away as often as you possibly can. So you kind of create these chunks for yourself of like, this is when I'm intentionally responding to messages and communicating with my coworkers. And then this is when I'm intentionally working on this task. View focusing on one single task at a time as a skill that you have to practice. Another way to practice this concept is by time batching energies. In episode 201, my exact weekly schedule that's made me 5 times more productive, I talked about my system of energy mapping and time batching all of my tasks in both work and home life. So, for example, like I spend one day batching all of my recordings. That's also the day that I'll probably see friends or go to a networking event. I spend one day in the super deep creative work. I do all the brainstorming, researching, writing all day. One day, all of my meetings and emails and the communication for the whole week so that I'm not constantly switching between different tasks and energies every single day. I get so much more accomplished. I'm better at every part of my job, I feel like, and all in less time and with less stress because I'm multitasking less. I'm task switching less. So go listen to that episode if you want more details on this weekly schedule and how to do your own energy mapping. I am all about habit stacking my wellness routine to add in more things that make me feel amazing without taking up more time. That's why I've been loving Wish Garden's Go To Kola oil. It's become my go to for making lymphatic drainage, dry brushing, or even just a few minutes of self massage feel like a deeply restorative ritual. And here's why it's a habit stack. Go To Kola is one of those ancient herbs that does everything. It's been used for centuries to support skin healing, reduce puffiness, and boost circulation. And this oil is clean, simple, no fillers or BS, just powerful plant magic in a bottle. I use it before gua sha or on my legs after a shower, and my skin looks noticeably smoother and more glowy. It's not a maybe I'll notice something product. It's one of those Wow, I did not know my skin could look like this kind of product. Try it for yourself. Go to wishgardenherbs.com and use code Everygirl20 for 20% off. The third principle is that energy affects our output more than our time. When we think of being productive or becoming successful, we typically think of how much time we're putting in. Like you've heard the stories of the founder who sleeps in the office because they're literally working 24/7. But a lot of us are working really long hours and we're burning ourselves out thinking that that is the way to get successful. A lot of us even brag about how busy we are, how much time we're dedicating to work. We all have that coworker when you're like, "Hey, how are you?" And she's like, "Ugh, I'm just so swamped. I'm so busy. I have so much to do." And you're like, "Kendra, I was just being polite, okay?" No one actually answers, "How are you?" honestly. And you don't get a gold medal for being busy. Like, we are so programmed to believe that our time is what affects our outcome. And that's actually not true. I'm going to say something crazy. I actually think time has nothing to do with success. I think it's all about energy. I have personally experienced this firsthand. In 2020, I started my own business on the side. I was health coaching. So I felt like every hour that I was not spent working at the Everygirl, I needed to spend on my business, or else I would not deserve or not be able to be successful in either lane. No surprise, I got super burnt out. I felt like I was like treading water where I was like putting in so much effort and not going anywhere. And it really wasn't until I decided I needed to take a step back and reprioritize my life and focus on my joy and my health. That is when the podcast came to be. That's when I started getting more successful. And I felt like I really knew where I was headed instead of treading water aimlessly. Like it just felt more effortless. I felt more inspired. I had better ideas. I did better work a lot easier in less time. And that was all because I was investing not more time, but more energy, which meant that I was prioritizing my health and happiness first and foremost. And when I did that, I got way better output and my career really started to change. I want to be very clear and transparent. I still spend a lot of time working. Okay. I'm not saying that like I've been able to find the hack that means that I only have to work like an hour a day. I work every weekend. I work a lot of hours every day. I work morning to night. So I don't want the fact checkers coming for me. But my point is that I no longer feel guilty when I take time off, or I feel like I should always be doing something for work or that work has to come first. I prioritize my health and my well being and my joy above everything else. It has taken me years to get to this place where I genuinely am actually doing it instead of just thinking I should. I am actually prioritizing my own well being before anything else in the world. I see the big picture of my life, and I know that the only way that I can possibly put in the amount of time that I do and still be successful, not get burnt out, still have creative ideas, still show up to my job well, is because I prioritize my energy. Like I can take on so much more because I invest so heavily in taking care of myself and feeling happy in my life. I don't think I could accomplish what I'm doing right now in the same amount of time that I'm working without this managing of my energy. Investing in your energy means you can do more in less time. Take care of yourself, seek out joy, tend to your relationships and your fullest life. And I swear you will show up to work with more critical thinking skills, energy, creativity, so you can easily accomplish more, impress your boss, take on the hard projects, get more done in less time. I compare this to writer's block. You know, those times when you had to write an essay for school, or maybe like you were writing an email at work and you're dealing with writer's block, right? You're sitting there, you're trying to formulate words, nothing's really coming together well. You type out a sentence and then it sucks, so you delete it. It maybe is taking you like 20 minutes to write one email. Or if you're writing this essay for your school, it takes you like 6 hours. it takes you so much time and still the finished product is like subpar, right? Like you're like, that was not my best work. Okay. But it took me so freaking long. Now think of the times when you're writing something and you're just in the flow state. Like words are just pouring out of you. You know exactly what you want to say. Maybe you wrote like the most communicative, clear, persuasive email of your life in under 2 minutes, or maybe you wrote an A+ paper in like an hour. Like we all have this experience of writer's block and being in the flow state, right? All of us, no matter what we do for work, are either existing in something comparable to a writer's block or a flow state all day, every day. The way that you avoid this block, this stagnated energy, is to exist in a constant flow state so that you do better work in less time. I feel like I'm repeating that phrase so many times, but I really want to prove to you why time is not what is going to make you successful. It is your energy because you can do better work in less time. Okay. That's, I swear, the last time I'm going to say that phrase. And how you get into this constant flow state is to invest more into your energy, your well being, your relationships, what brings you the most energy and joy, not to spend more time working, which is just going to increase your stress levels and burn you out. Think about being in fight or flight mode, which is what happens when, we're really stressed at work. Maybe you didn't take the time to see your mom over the weekend and de-stress, or you haven't exercised in days because you've been sitting at your computer. Like when you're in that stressed out state, physiologically speaking, your body is not thinking, oh, right now is the best time to problem solve or get creative. All of the energy in your body when you're in fight or flight mode is programmed to go into running away or fighting the tiger. Your brain is literally meant to shut down when you're in fight or flight mode, when you're experiencing stress. So, what all of this means is truly and honestly, the best, most effective success tip I have ever known, the secret to being successful, I think, is to invest in your energy instead of spending more time. Stop doing things that are draining your energy. Stop scrolling on your phone or meeting with that toxic friend or sitting at your computer for hours on end. Do things that genuinely refill your energy. Laugh more often, move your body, eat foods that are medicine to your brain, and you will accomplish more in less time. Okay, sorry, I said it last time. And you will also have a better output. You will do even better work. I know most of you listening probably need to hear this. So come closer, girls, and turn the volume up. Rest and joy are the most productive ways you could spend your time because they will help you gain clarity, creativity, abundance, and energy. If you are sacrificing your well being or your joy, you will not be able to perform your best at work. Point blank, period. Principle number 4, your calendar is your values in action. When most people plan their week or solidify their calendar, they're typically only planning and adding meetings or appointments to their calendar, right? And then everything else kind of gets lumped into this category of like, if I have free time, like Tuesday comes and you're like, okay, I'll do a workout this afternoon if I have free time. Or maybe you will decide to get together with friends on Thursday if you have free time. But it doesn't make its way into its calendar. It's like there's this whole life that is just lumped into these blank spaces on your calendar. First of all, I want to go on a quick, just like a little tangent. Let me tangent for a second because that term free time is really just a sneaky, toxic productivity term. Please stop using the terminology free time because it really just means time that's left over after the important stuff that you have to do is taken care of, right? That's what it means. So maybe you think of it like, obviously, you have to go to work. That's the most important thing. And maybe you look at it as like you have to do your chores or you have to do certain items on your to do list. You have to take care of your kids or pets. Maybe I know some people think of their workouts as part of that, like, I have to do this is the important part. Or other people think of their workouts as something that is lumped into that free time. I'll get to this workout if I have free time. I don't have free time. You don't have free time. I would never consider time with my friends or my fiance or time spent on my wellness routine as the open chunks on the calendar that I get to only if all the important stuff is taken care of. I do not have free time. I have time where I'm on an interview for the podcast. I have time spent on meetings with my team and preparing an outline. I have time working out. I spend time cooking. I spend time relaxing on the couch and watching Bravo. I spend time laughing and having wine with my friends. I have time where I am reconnecting with my fiance after a work day. None of this is free time because it is all equally important. So, back to the calendar, when we only add work meetings and appointments to our calendar, we are subconsciously sending a message to ourselves that this is the only category of our lives that is important. Like, these are the big things that we prepare for and make sure that we show up on time for and that we can't skip. Everything else just gets whatever leftover energy or time we have. Your calendar is your values in action. If wellness, joy, relationships, and rest do not make it onto your calendar, you are unintentionally saying to yourself that they are not a priority. So for me, I like seeing everything from podcast interviews to when I'm watching Real Housewives on my calendar because it is all equally important to me. A workout, hanging out with friends, a meeting with my team, these are all equally important parts of a full life. For one, because like I was just talking about investing in your energy, working out, eating nourishing foods, laughing with my friends, being with my fiance, watching Bravo. Truly, I look at all of these things as important to my career because it's how I increase my energy and therefore increase my vivaciousness and mood and creativity and presence at work. I am a good employee and a good manager and a good coach and a good podcast host and a good writer or whatever else I'm doing. I am good because I prioritize these other parts of my life. But also, and kind of, I guess, the more important point, all of these other pieces of my life are equally important to my job. Having a career that I feel fulfilled by is just as important as having a healthy body and mind, which is just as important as feeling happy in my relationship, which is just as important as having a strong friendship circle. All of these things are equally important to give me a happy, full life. I am telling you, high performers don't just plan their work calendars, they are designing their lives. The most successful CEOs and entrepreneurs time block for workouts, family dinners, even brainstorming time. When Sheryl Sandberg worked at Facebook, she had blocked time on her calendar to leave the office by 5:30 every single night for dinner with her kids. Cal Newport, the author of Deep Work, blocks entire days on his calendar for rest and thinking time. Ariana Huffington is another one who's talked a lot about how she schedules wind down time, meditation, and phone free time on her calendar, just like meetings. She said that if you look at her calendar, you wouldn't just see her meetings or her deadlines, you would see time blocking for sleep and recovery, and even time on her calendar spent doing nothing. There's a few purposes of this, I think, and a few reasons why the highest performing people are designing their lives instead of just having their work on their calendar. The first thing is, like I said, whatever you put on your calendar is your priority. It's what you will make sure that you get to on time, that you follow through with, that you don't skip. We're subconsciously telling ourselves that the stuff that's not on the calendar can be rescheduled or pushed back or just skipped altogether. But also because these high performers are planning their lives, not just their jobs, knowing that these pieces of their life, their sleep, their dinners with families, their workouts are essential for their job and deserve as much priority as an important meeting because it's how they are better at their job. It's how they are as successful as they are. So I'm going to share the way that I use my calendar. And I, again, look at it not like I'm scheduling my week of meetings and different obligations at work, but that I'm designing my life. So, first thing Monday morning, my CEO Mondays, if you know, you know, I grab my weekly planner pad. I love the Everygirl's Day Designer one. It is this super cute, like leopard print pad. And I will write out all of the big things that I have going on that week, like client sessions, interviews, events. And then I will add in from there my workouts, cooking times, meditations, morning routines, time with friends, date nights. I even, like I said, like to map out when I'm going to watch my Bravo shows, when I'm going to spend time reading, all of that. Once I have my week planned and I make sure that this is a week I would feel really good about, like looking through the whole week, will I be happy this week? Will I feel productive this week? Will this week feel like it's moving the needle forward in my life to where I want to be? I will also go in on a day-to-day, more micro level using a daily planner, also obviously the Everygirl's Day Designer Planner, and just like map out my schedule for each day as well as the tasks that I have to do. I just like to do it physically written. Call me old school, but I feel like I have a better sense of like control in my day and I can like visualize it better when I'm writing it instead of like typing it, but obviously whatever works for you. I know some people like to have different to-do lists, like having maybe like a work to-do list and a home to-do list or whatever. And I kind of mentally do that, I guess. Like I obviously have work to-do lists on things like Asana. I have like a constant running list of like to-do list items for our wedding planning, things for my coaching business, social media, things like that. But when I'm planning my day to day, I like to put all of my to-do list items together. I find that when people have separate to-do lists or calendars, some lists get prioritized more than others. And again, all of these are equally important pieces to my life. So I like knowing everything I have to do today, from podcast work to what a client needs from me to getting the oil changed in my car to returning a library book to answering our wedding planners about something. I think seeing everything at once also gives me a really good sense of my day and where I need to put my energy. So that's the system that works for me and makes me feel confident that I'm really designing my life and I'm intentionally in it, managing it, instead of just like scheduling my work and hoping that everything else falls into place around it. And it also helps me make sure that my calendar feels like a direct reflection of my values, of the life that I want to be living. And then the last principle that will undoubtedly make you more successful: an open network will help you achieve your goals faster than anything else. Talking about careers and any conversation about success have become so focused on the individual. Like, I need to do this, or my resume needs to look like this, or what can I achieve? Which is obviously important too. Like, focus on you and your life. You're your own best friend. But I think your network is truly the biggest proponent of whether or not you achieve success. And it's not even just about meeting people that can give you opportunities. You've probably heard of the phrase, you are the sum of the five people you spend the most time with. If you are around people that are playing small, talking themselves out of things, stuck in the same loops, if they're being judgmental about other people, or they don't support your goals and what you want to work toward, you will subconsciously absorb all of that. If you are around people who themselves are building and growing and they're dreaming big and they're taking risks and they're healing and they're being kind and successful, you will rise with them. There's a lot of research to show how important your network is to your success and how the people that you surround yourself with is often just as, if not oftentimes more important than any of your individual knowledge or habits. A study at Harvard found that young professionals between ages 20 and 25 who had mentors earned 15% more than their unmentored peers. Why is that? Because they received access to social capital and insight that they would have never figured out on their own, that directly correlated into the amount of money they were making. And why I say specifically open networks, what that means is when we think about our network, we usually focus on what we know or who we already know. But success doesn't come from inside your comfort zone. It comes from the people, ideas, and opportunities that you haven't met yet. Researchers in network science, yes, network science is a real thing, have found that people who are embedded in open, diverse networks, meaning people who connect across industries, backgrounds, connect with different perspectives, see greater career momentum than those in closed, homogenous groups or groups where they're all from the same type of industry or background and don't get a lot of exposure to new people. Career momentum comes not from what and who you already know, but who you could meet. So, while yes, having a close circle and putting a lot of value into the friendships that are like you and that you've had for a while is obviously amazing and important and comforting, you don't want to only be talking to people who think like you or work in the same job as you or who validate what you already know. You want to keep meeting people who will expand what's possible for you. So, start looking at your network as just as important, if not more important for your success than your education or your experiences or what's on your resume. Get in the habit of cultivating new relationships consistently or bringing in new people to your circle. And also, another tangent that I really could go off on, networking is obviously like so buzzy. Like, I feel like it was something that when I was in college, we started hearing a lot more of like, the job that you're going to get is about who you know, network, network, network. Like, it started to be such a thing. And I feel like the way that we think about it and talk about it these days is really transactional. To me, that version feels like grimy to me because the way that we think of networking or like define networking these days is really about using people. Reach out to the founder or a manager at a company that we want to work at so that we can use them to get a job. That's what it is. That's what most people think of networking as. Like, send the cold DM or email to the person whose job that you want, asking them to get on a phone call or meet for coffee. Like, you are asking these people who you know can get nothing from you to take up their precious time to answer your questions. That's all very like me focus. Help me, do something for me, spend your time to help me. And that is not going to get you far. What I mean by networking is forming genuine mutual relationships. There are two pillars that I would focus on with networking. Number one, networking with people at your same level for mutual support and benefit. Rebecca Minkoff talked about this a lot when I interviewed her. She actually had amazing advice on networking. So I highly recommend going to listen to her episode. That was back in the spring. But she talked about how when she was starting off as a designer, instead of spending her time reaching out to and emailing the top fashion editors, basically asking them for a favor, she connected and formed friendships with the entry level people in the fashion world. And then she tried to do what she could to help them. Like, she didn't give this example, but this is the only example that's coming to mind for me right now because I don't know much about the fashion design world, but like, "Oh, you need a last minute bag for a photo shoot? Sure, let me go out of my way and I'll pay to messenger you one of my bags to help you out with this photo shoot," whatever it is. And then those people, those friendships rose up in various parts of the industry. Like, they all gained more and more success together and were able to help each other because they all had an equal amount to offer. Actually, also, now that I think about this, Lori Harder, who's a super successful, amazing, talented entrepreneur, and another amazing episode to listen to for networking advice. But she talked about how her key to success was forming bonds with people at her same level and then rising up together rather than asking for favors or time from people that were in higher positions. So that's pillar one. Pillar two, I would say turning mentors into friendships. Of course, it is also beneficial if you can form connections with people who can give you advice, who have more experience than you. And I think that the real success happens when you not only have a mentor, but you become friends with people who would mentor you. Like, your friendships, the people that you spend the most time with are people that you really admire and that really inspire you. That's the sweet spot. But again, I think the key here is that it's not about what you can take from them, it's a focus on how you can support them as well. It's not just someone helping you up the ladder, It's you bringing something to them too. Whether that's, you bring a fresh energy or you offer support and enthusiasm for their work. Even just being someone that they genuinely like being around. You are offering something in your dynamic, in your relationship. It's not just about what you can take from them. It's mutual value is, I think, the center of every networking transaction. When those relationships with people that you really admire and look up to and would take advice from become authentic friendships, you're hyping each other up, you're asking about life outside of work, you're collaborating on something fun. That is when it is transformational. So, those things are what real networking looks like, not what can you do for me, or can you give me advice, or can I take up your time so you can help me? But how can we grow together? So, bottom line, your network, how you connect with people, how much you seek out connections will single handedly be the main determining factor of your success. I guarantee it. And by the way, just a side note, I find this really fascinating because we often think that being kind or empathetic somehow holds you back in the workplace. Like the most cutthroat person in the room is the one who's going to be most successful. To be taken seriously, especially as women in corporate spaces or in entrepreneurship, you have to be super harsh or have this like stone cold boss bitch energy to be taken seriously. I mean, you just have to watch The Devil Wears Prada once to see the stereotype. But research actually shows the opposite. A 2023 study published in Harvard Business Review found that empathetic people perform better at work. They get higher team performance, more innovation, and stronger retention. People want to work with you and for you. When you are emotionally intelligent, when you are collaborative, when you show that you care about them, you get more out of your career, you get higher up, you get more money, everything when people like working with you. You get promoted faster when you are someone that others trust and want to follow. How impressive you are on paper is not what expands your network. People are drawn to you when you are generous, when you're thoughtful, when you're authentic. So, seriously, I know that maybe this is like the most counter career advice that you would never find anywhere else, but I promise you, it is the secret, okay? Be kind. Genuinely care about other people and helping them. Be that person that connects with new people and thinks, how can I help them? How can I support them? Kindness and empathy make people feel seen and valued. And in a world where everyone is starving for connection, including in their career lives, that's a superpower. You can be kind and be assertive. You can be empathetic and be respected and know what you deserve and ask for what you deserve. I swear, apply that over anything else, and you will get much farther than you ever thought you could. I hope you like these 5 principles for success. Oh my God, I cannot believe I talked so long about just 5 principles, but I guess no one should be surprised. I'm a gabber. That's why I have this microphone. If this episode gave you any value, gave you a new idea you're excited to try, or a mindset shift you really need, first of all, I love that for you. Second of all, it would mean so much if you just take 2 seconds to share this episode with someone you love, a friend, a coworker, your work wife, your group chat. Send this episode to them. Let's all level up together. And if you haven't already, please make sure to hit follow on Spotify or subscribe if you're on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss what's coming next. Also, and this is huge, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave a review. It seriously helps the show grow and helps more amazing people like you find it. It is the best way to support the show if this episode or the podcast is bringing you any value. If you're on Spotify, you can now leave comments directly on episodes. It is my goal. Maybe this goal will be in vain because people don't need this, but like my goal is to create community out of this podcast. Like, that's why I'm doing this, because the world feels lonely and sad and isolating, and like we need more connection with other women. So I have this dream that we turn the Spotify comments into a group chat where we engage with each other, talk to one another. So that's my goal. Just so you know why I repeat this and say this every single week. But I really just think, it was so genius for Spotify to add the ability to comment and DM and like start using that platform as a way to connect with people and a way for me to connect with you guys. So I am dying to hear from you. Please let me know in the Apple reviews, Spotify comments. Give me some thoughts. If something resonated, challenged you, made you laugh, whatever it is, I read every single review and comment, and I love knowing what's landing for you. It's so helpful and so validating for me because at the end of the day, I'm just a bitch who needs affirmation like the next girl. But really, it is like so helpful to know what you guys like, to know what I can do more of and bring more of to you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about your growth and for being a part of this community, for being one of the girls. I'm obsessed with you. I love you. And I will talk to you on Thursday. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know I sure did. Please do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It really makes a huge difference for our show so we can keep growing and bringing the content that you love. If you want more info, you can find us at the Everygirl Podcast on Instagram or theeverygirlpodcast.com. Talk to you next week.